Good afternoon, and welcome into the SPL waiting room for Week 11. Now, first things first, you guys gotta be noticing that I am not aggro, and that's facts. I'm not aggro, I'm Finch instead. Aggro's off getting married, as far as I understand it, so I'll be here with you instead this week. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week. I mean, I want to look back at the run that PK are on right now, the Pittsburgh Knights, and how similar it is to the run that they did last year, making their way to Worlds and eventually becoming the world champions. And we just look back at it. Since Week 7, PK have won 5 of their 6 matches, and that one loss in there is to Ghost. Nobody's beating Ghost. Even Space Station loses to Ghost. That's nuts when you consider how much better this team is playing right now. And there's a lot of things that are going well for this team, right? Belair is starting to come into his own, being more heavily involved in fights and rotating on a lane early. But I think the real simple, clear truth of it all is that Cubo Fred is playing up to the level we expected from Cubo Fred. Finally. I mean, listen, it's not as if he's been playing bad, but he hasn't been playing like perhaps the second best jungler we've ever had, as everyone has always called him. And he's looked better. There's a couple stats I got here for you that I had to borrow from Gore. He has 159 kills here in Phase 2. That is only second to Sam for Soccer. He's been making the Unbats work lately and creating opportunities for his team, and finally getting some value out of the fact that Paul demands so much respect in those picks and bans. So I think that this is the PK team that's finally hitting their stride, but now they have this break coming up. We know that their games this week have been postponed. Is it going to be another Radiance thing? Are they going to be able to maintain their momentum when they come back? Or like Radiance, who was 7-1 and now suddenly 7-7, are they going to slump? This is an awful time for a slump to happen, so you have to hope that PK are able to start bouncing back. Now, if you need a bit more information about exactly what it is that did end up happening last week, I sat down with Dolson a little while ago. We went over all of those matches for you. That way you know exactly what's coming up here this week. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Recap, this time for Week 10 and featuring Finch and Dave. Glad to have the Dream Team back together.
That's
now,
right.
As always, we wrote these scripts for each other, and then we're going to read them for the very first time here live on this very same show. So I will be starting things off here for us. And it's another triple header Friday that started off Week 10 in the SPL, and Radiance versus Sanguine was on the slate. Two teams battling it out to get their phase back on the right track. Most notably, Radiance were on a 5-set loss streak, having lost to every team except for United and Sanguine over their last 5 games. And after a 3-game set, Sanguine make it 6 losses for Radiance, and Sanguine look to be back to form.
We started with PK versus the Renegades, and it ended about 4 hours later. Almost no joke on that one. There was a 65-minute, a 41-minute, and a 31-minute game, but despite the grueling length of matches, PK never wavered and hung on to win 2-1. Two hot streaks collide in the final set of the day on Friday. United had not yet lost since adding Baskin, and SSG have only lost to Ghost all phase long. Mercifully, this set ended up needing less than 45 minutes of total game time, and SSG streak continued.
Yeah, Dave, we are on to Saturday, and a set that in the past would be glossed over, but one that nowadays cannot be taken for granted. Ghost versus Obey. Ghost had won 6 out of their last 7, and while the wins have been slow coming for Obey, they have gone to 3 games out of 3 of their last 4 sets, and even winning 1. Add 1 more to the 3-game set column for Obey, and also tally another loss. Ghost win a close one, 2-1.
That's right, Saturday's final set pit Radiance against E United. Radiance were on a 6-game losing streak coming into this set. It keeps building up here at this point, and E United had just been served their first loss since adding Baskin, so this set would determine which team would regain some momentum. It was a very close set, but Radiance start to show some life as they win it 2-0.
Well, Dave, Sunday morning is a multi-kill lover's dream. This set between Space Station and the Knights had a triple kill or 2, a quadra-kill, and yes, the elusive pentakill. What
That's
a way
right.
to wake up and get the day started, and Gore got to bring us a great cast on that one. As was the case with 5 out of 7 games this weekend, PK and SSG go all 3, and it's only Dolson alone at the top of the prediction mountain who gets the right pick, and the Knights with a fun one 2-1. Yeah, it was invariably a smart pick. No chance it's luck. Dave is just that good. Giga Chad Brain Dolson will wrap up the week.
Yeah, did I make it clear that I predicted that one right? And no one, I'm not sure if I did in my script, but I'm glad we drove the point home there. The final set of the week was Sanguine up against Renegades. Sanguine come into the set looking stronger after a couple of wins, and Renegades looking more competitive since adding variety. This set goes to all 3 games, wouldn't you guess it? But I get the sense that Sanguine think they should have won all 3. In the end, it does end up being 2-1 over to Sanguine. That's it for Week 10, everybody, and that is Week 10 as told by Dave and Finch and as written by Finch and Dave. It was an absolute blast to watch. I'm very excited to watch Week 11.
And that is exactly what happened last week. Boy, do I love getting to work on those with Dave. And here's a fun fact. We didn't actually increase his head size for that bit. Normally, we have to shrink it for the SPL, so we just went normal for that one. I'm sure everyone thinks that that's totally exactly what happened. Now, we're going to be moving into a couple new segments here, but I have some people joining me for them. I got Mifflin. I got Goremizer here helping me out on the waiting room this time, trying to pick up the slack that is not having Aggro here with us, and I don't know how much of a good job we'll be able to do with that. But the first thing that I want to talk about here for you all is this Loki rework that went through. Now, first of all, we know he's not going to be able to be played until those SPL playoffs, right? Not probably going to be able to come in the regular season, but he went through some significant changes with the way that his second ability worked. The aim strike has changed now into like a channeled multi-attack ability. The ultimate has this built-in delay. Myth, as our jungle expert, I'll go to you here first, but what do you think of this new Loki and his SPL viability?
SPL viability, it's hard to say with a god like this. I would have to see it inside the competitive field. We'll likely see it in the SEC first. SPL likes to wait a little bit before they bring these new things in. But I think that Loki's in a pretty good spot right now. Beforehand, he really struggled with jungle clear. He was really having a hard time maintaining not only farming, but also trying to have presence on the map. But now, his gank presence is a little bit higher. He can rotate in the mid if he has to and use that flurry strike to find very good poke. His ultimate is a little bit easier to avoid nowadays, but I think the damage is a little bit more consistent as well. I think that Loki can certainly work, but I'm worried about his power spikes. In a meta that is so defined by early game aggression, I'm not sure that Loki's bringing that same level of pressure as gods like Erlang Shen or Raven or these other picks that are having a little bit more prevalence.
And Gore, talk to me a little bit about what you think here for Loki, because yeah, he has the blind on the 2 now, right, if you're in it for long enough, but that is a long time to get there, and he gets all the additional backstab damage. He has a bit more damage on his 3, but it's long and channeled, and a lot of people think maybe you cancel it early. Where do you come down on this new Loki and how you think he'll be playing in the SPL when you consider how quickly Tsukiyomi was picked up?
Yeah, it feels a little more niche. I mean, even Tsukiyomi, right? You had mentioned him, and he kind of got picked up, I mean, instantly. First week available, he is played, and he just kind of does okay, right? And now we're looking at it and it's like, well, he's not picked all the time. He's not doing what like Cthulhu did when Cthulhu was first released. And I think this Loki's going to fall into a very similar category where realistically, I think he's just going to be a little more niche, right? If you told me Scream or Panatom picked him up and decided to play him in the jungle, I really wouldn't be surprised because those two, I think, play maybe similar styles that this new Loki can bring. I also wouldn't be surprised if someone like Sam was able to make it look good. But, you know, with all of them, it is kind of like what Miss said, where it's just like, cool, you can do a lot. Pecky's just showcased that right there. You can do a whole lot in the right circumstances, but how often are you going to be able to find these scenarios in the middle of a team fight, especially when right now the junglers do still participate. They're not necessarily the go back there, isolate one, and then hope for the best. I think he's going to be seen, right? He's not going to necessarily disappear, but, well, I guess he can't disappear. He wasn't here. He's not going to be gone forever, but I do think that he's not going to be like first pick, have to lock him in, have to ban him every game. I think he's just going to come through every now and then and kind of remind us that he exists. I'm just happy that one day, ideally, and it's going to suck that it has to wait till playoffs, but I can take him off this list I have over here of the 4 gods that still need to be played this year. He's been sitting there taunting me ever since I made that. I just hope that we do get to see him erased from that list.
I'm hoping so too, Gore. I mean, you mentioned that he won't be able to vanish, even as he does vanish now, a little bit more visible at that beginning of him going into the cloak. So a lot of changes to make him more playable against, but I don't know if that's the same thing as making him all the way to the level where he can be at that SPL viability. So I'm right there with you, Gore, in not being so sure about how he'll be looked at. So some of the other things that we'll be talking about here next is which teams in the SPL right now here, Gore and Mifflin, are increasing and or improving, and which teams are starting to struggle here a little bit more in our rising falling segment that we're calling it. And the first team I want to talk about is Sanguine. I was worried about this team for a little bit coming in after that off season, or after the break, excuse me. They seem to be struggling a little bit, but they're on a hot streak now, right now, winning more games. Gore, I'll come to you first on this one. How strong do you think Sanguine are, and are they back to that top 4 strength that we typically know them at?
I think they are. I think they're actually in a position where they're going to be maybe even stronger than what we got to see in Phase 1, right? Because they're not just a one-trick pony, hey, they took the game to 25 minutes, now they get to win. Now they are getting a little more aggressive earlier. We're getting to see Panatom pick up some of these picks that, at least in Phase 1, and honestly for the first half of Phase 2, he wasn't willing to play. Yarkor has proven time and time again how useful he is as a solo laner. I think through and through, Sanguine are on the rise right now, and they're a team that, I think if you're SSG, if you're Ghost, if you're, well, I guess Knights now that are the ones that are kind of climbing up, even Radiance there, you have to be scared of them because of what they're bringing into the game now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a scary team, and you're right to talk about how they've evolved to now have this early game pressure that you must be worried about on top of their league-leading late-game team fight. Now, Myth, what about you? I mean, I feel as though you've been a bit of a sanguine truther here. What about Radiance? This is a team that has struggled mightily lately. They did manage to find one more win up against E United, rather convincing. It was 2-0. But are you ready to say that this team is back, or are they still struggling like we know they have been?
I think that Radiance is a very interesting squad to keep track of because we know what their top end is capable of. We know how great these guys can be together. But I think that the real struggle is keeping their momentum going. I'm not willing to say that they're back where they should be just from beating E United. For my money, E United's a middle-of-the-pack team. I expect Radiance to win that set. I don't think that they really have come back to that glory that we expected seeing from Phase 1 or the beginning of Phase 2, where they're up there competing with the likes of SSG. I think that Radiance right now is in this state of flux where it's really hard to nail down what exactly these players want the team to look like. How do they want these games to play out? Where are they trying to go? You think of Aurora out of support, I associate him with Hercules and these aggressive playstyle. But now he's playing things like Terra and Kepri. It seems like there's been a massive shift in the mentality of this team. The growing pains are going to take a while to really iron themselves out.
Where would you guys say, and Gore, I'll come to you first on this, that you would have Radiance in your power rankings right now, considering how good PK, Sanguine have been looking, and even E United are starting to improve as well? Has this team made it back into your top 4, or do you have them a little bit outside of that range, Gore?
I think I put them 5th, 6th. I think they're sitting there in my mind right now with E United. I think E United, if you put them in a vacuum and you continue having them fight against Radiance right now, will be able to win after a little bit, right? I think in the next few weeks, unfortunately, like E United had to go up against Ghost today, so maybe not the easiest matchup to start things off and continue after SSG last week. But I think they're definitely on the rise and someone you have to keep your eye on. Radiance, it felt like they bounced back a little bit last week, but there's still a lot of growing room before I think they can get back into the top 4.
Real quick, Myth, where do you have them placed in your power rankings right now?
Real quick, with the recent surge of PK, I think that Radiance has just kind of taken up their mantle as the gatekeepers to the top 4. I've got them right at that 5th spot.
Well, one other team to talk about if you want to move from the top 4 to the bottom 4 is this Renegades roster. And where exactly do they sit now? They made their roster change. They have variety over, and it looks like he's added some leadership. They've improved the way they play, both the early and the late game, but they still have not quite been able to start chaining together some wins. Mifflin, how strong do you think this Renegades team is, and do you see them improving, or are they going to be one of those teams that are left to the wayside? Because remember, they're right there on that bottom 3, and being outside of the bottom 2 is critical for your path towards moving into Worlds. You have to play less games.
I think Renegades is a team that is at great risk of falling into that bottom 2 slot. I think it's easy to track the issues that I have with Renegades. I've been vocal about this team in the past because they're very easy to read. It's so clear to me when Renegades' mental have shattered. There are games where they will legitimately not do anything. They'll wait for the entire game to play out in front of them and just kind of play this reactionary. We said counterpunch playstyle last week, but it just feels like, again, Renegades is a team that really is reliant on their jungler. They need him to pop off. They need Lazaro to find that level 3 cringe gank in duo and then go back to mid and pop off there as well. And if that's not happening, I haven't seen proactive plays come out of Renegade anywhere else. It just seems like that this team has a very long way to go in terms of mental and the ability to stick into these sets where they've taken some hard losses. They could drag games out because of the merit of their play style. The inherent value of playing this reactionary style means that you're not opening yourself up to risks, but it also means that you're less likely to find the win.
Well, Gore, real quick, do you think that this is also a team that can end up 7th or 8th place by the end of this phase, or do you think they could hold on to maybe that 6th place spot?
I don't know. It feels like they're falling down. I think they have a very high ceiling, right? They do have the capabilities. We've seen them in the past to play extremely well. Unfortunately, we just don't get it every single game. I think today's match, I almost wish the show was tomorrow just so we could talk more about it because they're playing Obey later, and I think that's going to be a true heat check as to whether or not we'll, really get to see that out of them.
I agree. Going to be a critical match coming up here next, Gore. And hey, I just talked to you, so maybe I'll come right back to you. I feel like last time when we were able to do some of that fact seat gaming, get some of those Gore effects coming in, such a great segment that I thought we'd run that back here one more time. Gore, what do you have for us this week?
So as you can see down there, there's 4 players right now in the league that have top deaths on their teams, but they're not the support players. And I want to know if you can maybe throw out who you think they are.
Twig. Captain
Yes,
Twig. That's my first guess. He's the most.
I will also say, just because you got that one right, he's the only mid laner that's on the list, so that can narrow down some of it.
That's narrowing it down.
That did not help. That didn't help me
Well, it's
at
got to
all.
be a jungler, you're thinking, right? Myth, right? I mean, it's someone that's in battle a lot.
junglers
Can't
are
be solo.
infallible. No, we're infallible.
no,
Hey,
no,
oh, man.
I don't know. Have I got any more? I don't know if I've got any more guesses for us here, Gore. What are we looking at? What are those other?
Oh, to round out the list, there's going to be Cheerios, Snoopy, although Snoopy's the one I had to put an asterisk on because he was a support at the beginning. I think that's where a lot of his deaths came from. And then Panatom, and then just as a little bonus on the side, Panatom actually is at exactly 100 deaths right now as we enter this week. So that one's just fun for me. At least I enjoyed it. I don't know if everybody else got to. Either way, Rom has been picked a lot. And there are 2 teams right now that do not have him in their top 5 gods. What 2 teams do you think don't care as much about Rom as the others?
PK is one of them for sure, because Zap plays Heimdall all the time, right?
Yeah,
he doesn't need
agreed.
easy ROM snipes to make life easy for him. Zap wants the harder life. So for sure, I'm saying PK.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say he's not one of the 2. PK,
What?
They picked him up. I'll go over and just to look at it, make sure I have this available to me.
Myth, what do you think?
He is
I'm
their
thinking
4th pick. Heimdall has been picked
Obey?
more by them, but not all there. Not Obey either.
Obey?
He is,
Wow, he loves Cupid. Okay.
Over there is number
okay.
2. It's Cupid Rom for Obey. No, it's Renegades and Ghost Gaming.
Like a lot of Cupid.
Renegades have been favoring Jingwei and Cupid for their hunters, and Ghost Gaming, Cupid's the only hunter they have in their top 5. And it's just been interesting to see as that's kind of evolved. It's weird considering how often we see Rom first picked. Either way, a couple weeks ago, I guess, we were originally going to have this on this fact, and then we had to postpone the show. Radiants win more on the Order side than they do on the Chaos side. I think I just revealed it, but I will let you know, because we talked about it a few weeks ago, those numbers have shifted. It has now become 68% of their games, if they're on Order side, they're going to win. So think of it as 7 out of 10, right? If they're playing 20 games, they're going to win 7 of them as long as they're on the Order side, and they've played 10 games over there. They're only going to win 33% of their Chaos side games, and it's just a kind of staggering difference. I mean, yeah, getting second pick kind of hurts if you're Radiance here.
It's
crazy to me
Don't
that
let
there's
the
that
other
much
teams do that.
disparity.
And then, oh yeah, wait, the surprise fact, I didn't know about this one.
When was the last time
was the
Loki?
last time Loki was played in the SPL? I'm going to say, I'm going to take the guess first because I technically get to control this segment, and I'm going to say season 5 and like October. Oh, that's a year? 20, what year would that have been? 2018? I'm going to say 2018.
That's a good guess, Gore. I'm thinking 2018 too. Just because you've taken it, I guess I have to say 2017, right?
That was mine. 2016. All right, look, Price is right.
That's too far.
Oh no!
Right. 2016, Miff lucked into it.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. That is absolutely unacceptable. Mifflin lucking into a win is enough for me to close the curtain on this show. We're gonna really quickly show you all one more quick video here next. The roll queue coming up for the junglers. Then we're right into the SPL. So do not go anywhere.
All 3 of you are also Cabrakan lovers. I mean, Cabrakan would definitely be coming back. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen him at all.
Like, you can play him. It's just like, there's just better gods, you know? I think he's way better in solo, but in support. Like, it took me like 4 years convincing Nika to play that god, then he played it 1 game finally, so happy about that.
He also abused it against me and ranked 1 time, so I will never forgive him for that.
I'm sorry.
Dude, he counterpicked me, man. I picked Jorm, and he picked Cabrakan. Like, that's an unwinnable matchup.
Okay, you
that's
sniped his
kinda
Jorm pick,
cringe.
though. That's the full story.
All right, that is true. He wanted to
Oh.
play Jorm. I picked it away from him, but it was a bit. Like, I didn't think that he was going to get mad about it. It's
Yeah,
not
he was
my
mad.
fault.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah, you know
it
what?
was not my fault.
I don't take the apology back. You deserve it.
All right, that's not very nice, but I guess we can move on a little bit from that.
You all just had to throw up an aggro clip, huh, and show them what they were missing with me here as the host. I'll never forgive you for that. That's just how it's going to be. Make sure that you do check out that roll queue, though. You want to see how all those jugglers are feeling, get some of their thoughts on what's going on in the SPL right now. So let's start getting ready then for this next week that is coming up here, guys. Take a look at the schedule first. We already talked about how important some of these matches that are coming up are going to be, but I think the most important one for us to take a look at has got to be this Renegades-Obey Alliance matchup, right? I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about that just in a moment, but that one has to be critical when you consider where they both are in the standings. As you mentioned, PK on the rise, now out there at 9-6, cracked into that top 4, and sounds like both of you that I had on the desk agree that Radiance deserve this 5th place spot they're in, that they might be 5th or 6th in terms of the power rankings, depending on how you value E-United right now. But Gore, you brought this up earlier. The most important match, it feels like, is going to be this Obey Renegades match, this battle at the bottom where we get to see how strong these two teams are. Which way are you leaning in this one? What are you expecting to see?
Man, this one, I can't even remember what I chose as my predictions for this one because, one, I did it yesterday and maybe 2 days ago. I can't remember. Either way, it was one of those matchups that it's just so hard to call because, again, Renegades, when you get them at their ceiling, they're so good. They play so well. They seem cohesive. You get a really good game out of Lasber and it can change everything. It's just whether or not they get some of their picks, right? This Ratatosker that you're seeing, not on the screen, but at least locked in here for Lasber, has been very kind to them. Variety, like you said, has brought some leadership and a spice of life over there to the solo lane for them. Granted, I think SOT was, bringing in assassins and stuff, but you're getting a lot more warriors. The Guan Yu, more notably, has been jumping up here. And I think Vin has really found his role on this team. It's just trying to get them all locked in at the same time that seems a little more difficult. And admittedly, if you can get Obey on a good day, I think, parameters, like their worst game and their best game are a little closer overall. I think we're going to get a more consistent performance out of them. And I think that gives them a pretty solid chance to jump the Renegades here. It won't shake up the standings too much. It would just tie them overall if Obey get the win. But it would really give them a good, I think, step forward.
Well, Myth, I don't want to ask you who you think is going to win. Everyone knows that you're picking Obey, even in sets where they're not playing. But convince me, I suppose, that Obey are going to win this set here over Renegades.
Look, Renegades is backsliding, all right? I don't think I have to... That's not news. I'm not breaking that to anybody. Obey, on the other hand, is on the way up. When you're, 0 wins for the longest part of a season, way up might be a little bit of an understatement, but they're absolutely playing to their strengths recently. I think that Sino, in particular, fancy that he's on the screen, has been expanding his god pool, not only playing Nike anymore, now trying to expand his way into the Erlang or even the Nemesis. He's playing these more hyper carry roles, and he is certainly the most mechanically talented player on this roster, so I think I really like seeing him on these more carry-centric picks. But I think recently, and the most impressive improvement from Obey has been out of the duo lane. Bobby has been feeding a lot less. His engagements have been strong, but Wowie in particular, I like to call him the pacifist of the league, has recently been looking to make aggressive plays out of the long. He's been rotating in mid very early on. It feels like Obey is growing as a team, and I'm starting to really figure out how they want to play it out. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that they're going to win this one.
At least pretend like it's going to be a close one there, Myth, but maybe you made a bit of a convincing argument. Well, we know how Myth is going to be voted, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of those overall predictions here so you can see exactly what everyone was thinking about these matchups that were coming into this week. Now, this is how all our records are standing right now. What scares me is that Hinduman is slowly closing the gap, as is Gore, but what, as always, provides comfort is that Mifflin sits down in the 50s, not even a D at that point, certainly an F for Mifflin. But these are our overall predictions for this next week. Remember, with those PK games postponed, you're voting for some different ones, and it looks as though Aggro voted Obey for all four, taking up the mantle there from you, Myth.
You know what? I don't like being shown up by Aggro here, not even a little bit, but his votes are looking good. I've got no complaints.
His are looking good. Gore, yours are looking pretty standard alongside mine as well, though I took Renegades in this Renegades Obey set. It's just me and chat that like this one. Do you think it's that clearly going for Obey here that everyone else in the casting team's likely right?
I don't think it's clearly Obey, right? You know what I mean? It's one of those, like, if you edge it out, I honestly would not be surprised if it's a 3-game set, goes the distance for all of it, and Obey are able to scrape by. Renegades have been pushing a lot of these teams 2-3 games, and granted, they've done it, long form against Ghost Gaming, they've done it long form, in the last week against the Knights. I just don't know that they're going to be able to hold up as well here against Obey.
I'm not sure either, but I'm riding or dying with chat. We're voting together on Renegades in that set, chat. Let's ride in as allies on that one. Thank you both for being here with me on the waiting room this week. Who misses aggro at this point, right? We held it down. SPL is going to be coming up next here, though, so make sure that you do not consider going anywhere else. Stick around, and we'll be right back to bring you all of that SPL glory.